Hi everyone. In this module, we are going to learn about 21 CFR Part 11. CFR stands for Code of Federal Regulation. FDA introduces the accurate idea about the 21 CFR Part 11 under the title 21 CFR Electronic Records, Electronic Signatures. These regulations provide standards for when should the records and signatures can be considered trustworthy, reliable, and equivalent to paper records. 21 CFR Part 11 is the FDA's regulation for electronic documentation and electronic signatures. It outlines the administration of electronic records in a medical device company's quality management system. The Code of Federal Regulation is a codification of the general and permanent rules published in the Federal Register by the executive departments and agencies of federal government. The Title 21 of the CFR is reserved for the rules of the Food and Drug Administration. 21 CFR rules are a set of rules which govern or regulate the management and usage of electronic records in pharmaceutical and medical devices. 21 CFR Part 11 applies to clinical trial sponsors, including pharmaceutical and medical device companies who are conducting FDA-regulated research. It also applies to the clinical research organization and research sites. In March of 1997, FDA issued final Part 11 regulation that provide criteria for acceptance by FDA under certain circumstances of electronic records, electronic signatures, and handwritten signatures executed to electronic records or equivalent to paper records, and handwritten signatures executed on paper. In March 1997, FDA issued final Part 11 regulation that provide criteria for acceptance by FDA under certain circumstances of electronic records, electronic signatures, and handwritten signatures executed to electronic records as equivalent to paper records and handwritten signatures executed on paper. Therefore, the regulatory framework applies to any company within the FDA-regulated industry that manages electronic records and electronic signatures. So specific Part 11 requirements here includes the operation controls, the data integrity, security controls, electronic signatures, data retrieval, data validation, and it will have entire audit trails. Data integrity. So the requirement of this guideline is to have digital process and controls proper to ensure the authenticity, integrity, and confidentiality of electronic records. The point of the regulation is to make sure the data and information you gather and share in or via the software is accurate, traceable, fit for purpose, and protected from loss or misuse. So that is why the data integrity is more important. Data retrieval. So Part 11 requires a software should have the tools to protect the documentation to enable their accurate and ready retrieval throughout the record's retention period. So controlling the records from the development process so they are automatically archived, indexed, and available on demand will help. Audit your own system effectively to investigate and proactively check for any deviation and issues. Track and trace root causes of any identified deviation in the system. Support external audits. Respond quickly to regulatory questions to keep the business compliant. Sometimes if the data got erased, still you can retrieve the data if your system supports the same. So always those records should be saved not only into the one server, it should be stored on the cloud storage or in multiple servers so that if any issues occurs also, the data can be retrieved easily. Validation. Part 11 requires validation of systems to ensure accuracy, reliability, and consistent intended performance. So what validation is? Validation is a process or set of activities that ensures and provide confidence that the system is able to accomplish its intended use, goals, and objectives. So first, it should be defined that how all elements of the system are supposed to work, then developing the scripts and test routines to validate if the software is functioning as it should. Although it's a lengthy process, still validating the system will demonstrate whether it fit to purpose as the required standards. Similarly, we discussed about the data validation guideline in the conduct phase as well as in the startup phase as well. Why data validation we do? Because you will have your own test scripts, whether the system runs as per the logic or how it is programmed. So if it fails, then there should be some programmatical error in the system. So that is why validation plays a main role in terms of your part 11 requirements. So it gives the accuracy and reliability so that everyone will have a trustworthy on the software that they are going to use it. So always the system should be validated. That is why computer system validation procedure is one of the major component in any system development management sequences. Audit trail. An audit trail is most often utilized when the accuracy of a data element needs to be verified or when a record of changes made to original or source data is required. Sometimes when the user has entered some data into the system but that was not correct, but later they have modified to a correct data. But what it could have occurred, sometimes a check would have identified and those discrepancies would be stored in the system. Then based upon the audit trail only, so you can identify what data was entered earlier, why such errors has happened. So always audit trail plays a key role in terms of your accuracy as well as for your data verification too. So part 11 requires the software to have a complete version history available for every quality document in the system through the use of secure, computer generated, time-stamped audit trails to independently record the date and time of operator entries, which is nothing but your data entry and action that create, modify, or delete electronic records. Recording the detail of every change and sign-off event by author, date and time will give complete traceability and accountability over all the decision making that happens in the development process or during your finalization process too. It will make for faster and more precise auditing and investigative process than your paper-based system. Because to investigate your data in a paper-based system is a lengthy process as well as a time-consuming process. In case of electronic identification, where the user can track the data at what point they have entered and what was the issue, everything can be clearly identified with the help of audit trail. Operation controls. So part 11 requires the use of operational system checks to enforce permitted sequencing of steps and events as appropriate. The ability to set up automated workflows for the collection of approvals and signatures will give more control over people and process as to manage the development cycle. They can ensure queue documents are grouped together before they are reviewed by specific individuals at specific moments in the plan. This also brings order and clarity to a complex process and minimize the risk of making multiple mistakes. Security controls. Part 11 specify the controls which is needed over access and editing rights within the system. So every user have its own specific roles. That is, some users may have only view access, some users will have editing access, some users even will have the setup access. So the FDA states that access to electronic systems needs to be limited to authorized users, the authors of records need to be identifiable, and audit trails need to be available in order to track changes to data. So that is the reason every users will have their own unique login ID. So based upon their login ID, the same can be tracked against if any data are modified. So access to a system should be controlled by a unique login and password for every authorized system users. So this can be achieved by using various tools which maintains a list of users, their password, access levels, and etc. So hereby, the users will only need one password to log into their computer and to sign documents electronically. So once the documents are signed electronically, it assures that it also replicates the signatures of the source template or their source. What is electronic signatures? It's one of the most common ways of reviewing and approving the electronic record that is compliant with 21 CFR Part 11 guideline. So to be compliant, a digital signature always should contain the printed name of the person who is going to sign the document, the date and time when the signature was executed, and it means that the person who has provided the signature has reviewed, approved, and they have provided the authorship associated to that signature. Each electronic signature must be unique to one individual and should not be reused by or reassigned to anyone else. The uniqueness of each combined identification code and password must be maintained such that no two individuals have the same combination of identification code and password. Identification code is nothing but the username. Documents required for compliance: validation document, data handling document, data integrity, archival documents, training records, system access control, audit trail documents, and electronic signature records. Validation document. So this document contains all the information about how the software is validated according to the guidelines. This document also ensures that your software is error-free and it is ready for use. It means that it fits your purpose. The whole validation records are provided in this particular document. It has the test scripts which was tested, the test data entries made during the validation process, and to help the other parties, that the person who is going to utilize the software or the company which is going to use the software will have a confirmation that the test data entries were made and the system is validated as per the requirement. So it assures that the system has been tested for every and any form of errors that could occur in the software. Data handling. Data handling is the process of ensuring that the research data is stored, archived, and disposed of in a safe and secure manner during and after the conclusion of a project. So this document includes the policies and procedures to manage how the data is handled electronically. So it also helps in ensuring that the data will be stored and handled well for long-term use until unless the sponsor requirement is mentioned. Data security and integrity. Data security refers to the protection of the data against unauthorized access or corruption and is necessary to ensure the data integrity, and it also measures used to ensure the validity and accuracy of the data that is contained in the database. So this document contains what type of policies, procedures, and standards which ensures the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of data which is securely managed and practiced and controlled. Archive. Data archiving is the process of moving data that is no longer actively used. Once the system is locked, it means that once the study is completed and the data is extracted and the database is also locked, then that particular data should be archived. So this shows that how the data is archived to a separate storage device for long-term retention. This document also helps in archiving all the data into the archival system and ensuring that which will have only a limited access, it is safe, accessible, and it can be used as long as it is needed and to be retained as well. These documents are in text and also have search capabilities, so files can be located and retrieved at any point of time. Training records. These documents contain all the information about the training the staff underwent before developing the system and after developing the system, also the user, whoever is involved in the process. It also has everything stated about the qualification, experience of the staff who are involved in the process of development. System access control. So access control is a security related document where it is stated that who or what can be viewed from a particular credential or login. And it is a fundamental concept in security that can minimize the risk to the business or organization. Access system control perform identification, authentication, and authorization of the users and entities by evaluating a required login credentials that may include the password, pins, the enterprise name, or your enterprise model, etc. So this document helps to keep the access limited only to certain users so that we can minimize the data modification or corruption. So the last could be the audit trail. An audit trail is a step-by-step record by which all the users' details are available and can be traced to their source. This document records all the information in a chronological order so as to be utilized when the accuracy of any data is need to be verified and audited. In this document, the data is protected from any accidental or intentional modification or deletion, and the audit trails are readily available for inspection as well as audits too. Electronic signature record. This document consists of all the guidelines and procedure required for your signatures. So this shows that the document ensures the authenticity and reliability of the electronic signatures. Thank you.